should there be a different approach when the religious talk to the skeptical? Now, I'd argue yes, they ought to pay attention to what's being said to them and reevaluate their faith in light of the objective facts, but I agree that's probably too much to ask for. They're not going to be good at that. So here's a theist who has a different way, and let's see if it's actually intellectually valid. Today, we're going to look at a channel called Just Jhia, and I hope I'm pronouncing that right, I'm sorry if I'm not, where our intrepid theist is going to propose a brand new method of dealing with atheists. And I think once you see it, you'll understand why it's being done. Because these people are scared. They really are. They don't get to push the religion on other people by force anymore. They don't get to impose their faith on the world by fiat, and they can't stand up in a fair fight. So what else can they do? Well, watch on and find out. It's really not that much of a surprise.
What's up, people? I am Jhia. Today's topic of video is very near and dear to my heart. I was recently speaking with someone who is very, very close to me, and we were having a conversation about belief in God being solid truth.
Yeah, how did that go? Because belief in God, or belief in anything really, is pretty pointless when you think about it. It doesn't matter what you believe. It matters what you can prove. And lots of people believe some pretty asinine things if you really think about it. You've got people that believe in invisible body thetans. You've got people who believe they've been abducted by aliens. You've got people that think there are big hairy creatures running around in the woods somewhere that science simply can't detect. And you've got people who think that Elvis is still alive. So yeah, lots of really, I hate to say dumb people, lots of really delusional people who believe things uncritically and for entirely emotional reasons. Now, why should we care what any of these people believe, especially as they do so without any kind of objective evidence whatsoever? And why should we believe the things that you claim, especially because it's done in the same manner? Inquiring minds want to know.
It was a very interesting conversation, and I am very excited about it, which is why I am making this video. The person who I was speaking with was questioning, how can a Christian prove that God is real?
And that's a great question. It really is. One that no Christian actually has a good answer to. Now, that's not to say that they don't try. Barely, I guess. I mean, most of them will just throw out some ad hoc rationalization that relies on faith or personal experience or their own ignorance. Mostly ignorance, because that's what all of the others are really based on. But ultimately, they believe it because it makes them feel good, and that's all they really care about. That happens to be downright pathetic, though. There is no reason whatsoever, no coherent, rational, or evidence-based reason to believe in any God of any kind, period. But they don't care, do they? Because their beliefs are not based on any of those things. They should be, but they're not. But let's see what Jhia has to say, because I'm betting right now that she's not going to be any better.
He sent me a video, asked my thoughts about it. I was so excited to think about it. I was so excited to turn my thoughts around, because I love when people who are questioning come to ask questions. Not because I know all of the answers, but because it's a good thing to quest after God.
No, it's a good thing to quest after reality, because reality is what actually exists. God, whether you like it or not, is a fantasy belief. God is no more real than Harry Potter, based on every shred of evidence that we have. And that's really a problem that we end up having with all of these God beliefs. And a lot of theists simply can't tell the difference between reality, what's actually there, what we actually can prove, and an emotionally comforting fantasy world that we can't. They are not in this to find objective truth. They only want a dopamine hit in the brain, and when you think about it, that's kind of pathetic. They ought to be better than that. It's the same reason that people use drugs to escape from their problems. It alters their brain chemistry, and it makes them feel good. Religion is just a drug, with all of the same inherent problems therein. It doesn't actually solve anything, and it screws up your brain in the process. You still have all of the same problems, probably even worse, when you come back, and now you're Dane Bramaged. It's really kind of stupid.
So, I watched the video, I called the person back and I said, man, I watched the video. And he said, yo, what did you think? I will put a link in the description to the video that I'm addressing right now.
And just for clarity, it was a video from the Atheist Experience. And I'll throw up a link to that video in the description so you can take a look if you want to go. But I don't want to get in the way any more than I need to, so let's get back to Jhia.
But to give you a little summary, the show on YouTube is a podcast, and the title of the video is Good Evidence of God, the Atheist Experience. Now, lots of Christians get very squirmy when atheists are brought up, but all it means is that a person does not believe in God.
Well, at least you got that part right, which is more than I can say for a lot of theists. And that's really why I think a lot of theists get immediately uncomfortable, because they have a hard time accepting that everyone isn't just like they are. That's part of the religious mind poison that they've got coursing through their veins after all, but it is important to point it out. I can't tell you how many theists I've talked to over the many years I've been doing this, who simply couldn't get it through their heads that not everyone automatically believes in their God. Lots of them will pull out passages. You'll get all of the classics like Psalm 10:4, Psalm 14:1, and the more recent one that the evangelicals tend to like, Romans 1:18 through 20. Well, that just proves that you're not an atheist. No, that just proves that you're an idiot. Or the theists will argue that we're not atheists, we're agnostics, as though there's any kind of a difference. We still think you're dumb for believing in things for which you have no good evidence. What label you put on it doesn't matter. Changing the word doesn't change the sentiment. But anyhow, let's get back to the video and see where she goes from here.
Which is a very exciting time for Christians, or should be a very exciting time for Christians, because this is the time where we are able to share our faith, share why we believe what we believe.
The problem is, your reasons are irrational and absurd. Now, I know you don't agree with that, but it's a good thing that your feelings don't matter, because objectively and logically, we can point out just how badly your supposed reasons fare in reality. It's one reason channels like mine exist, to point out just how ludicrous the things that you believe, the things that are said by the religious, actually are. And it's why I keep pointing out just how childish the faith of the religious actually is. They're not searching for the truth. When asked why they believe, they cross their arms and stomp their feet and they say, "Because I wanna." But that's not a good reason. It just isn't. Yet that's really all the religious have. It's dressed up, of course, to make it sound better than it is, mostly because they're speaking to an already religious audience who are all doing the same thing. But it doesn't matter how much lipstick you put on a pig. It's still a pig. and they can't recognize that. And that's a problem.
Here's the problem. Nowhere in scripture does it tell us to argue on behalf of our faith. I do not believe that Jesus meant for us to argue with people and carry the sword of truth in order to cut people's heads off. He said very clearly, they will know us by the way that we love.
Unfortunately for you, you're just wrong. 1 Peter 3:15 says, "But in your heart revere Christ as Lord. Always be prepared to give an answer for everyone who asks you to give the reason for the hope that you have. But do this with gentleness and respect." It doesn't say to run and hide under your bed. It says stand up and tell anyone who asks why you believe what you believe. And unfortunately, the people who actually take that passage seriously, they've got really, really bad reasons. They always do. And the more intelligent humans get, the less intelligent theists appear. It's a problem that they simply do not want to acknowledge. And it's kind of funny how that works, right?
So, after I got done with this conversation with this person, I was very excited because the person shared with me that makes sense. I cannot prove that God is real. Yes, I know Romans 1 that says creation testifies to the glory of God. Yes, I know creation is groaning and it's waiting for the sons and daughters of God to realize who we are. But to an atheist who does not believe in our God, who does not believe in the things that we believe in, it's up to us to show them how much we love them. And I don't know about you guys, but I've not seen very much love in any person that I've argued with ever.
We don't see it in you either, so yeah. But anyway, that's really irrelevant. This is just the Christian version of
Run away! Run away! Run away! Run away!
I'm not sure why that's supposed to impress anyone, because it sure doesn't impress us. It just reveals the utter futility and weakness of your beliefs, as though that's really any surprise. Because we don't care about your love bombing. That's cult behavior. Go look it up. We care about your evidence, and you don't have any. And for rational people, that ought to make you rethink what you believe. I mean, if someone brought to my attention the fact that I believe something for bad reasons, I'd certainly set it aside and reconsider my options. I'd go back to the best evidence available and make up my mind based solely on that. Yet that's not what the religious do, is it? Because they just don't care. And that's sad.
That's just me though. Y'all could be different. Anytime somebody is arguing something or arguing a point, I always feel like I'm not being heard because they just want their points to be proven. We do not want it said about us.
Sorry, but a lot of the things said about you, I mean, not you specifically, but Christianity in general, and indeed all theists as a whole, those things aren't that flattering. Because you people, whether you like it or not, are crazy. You are not treating your religious beliefs as anything rational. And that's a problem, it really is. The people you talk to are absolutely right when they say they want their points to be addressed. Why? Because your religion is dumb. All religions are, and these people are just trying to help you get a little closer to reality. You're just fighting it because you're not being rational. You can't be when it comes to your blind faith. And I don't care if that makes you happy or not. It's still dumb. Stop being dumb. Learn some basic logic and critical thinking skills. Be skeptical of the things in your brain and make some good decisions based on objective facts for once in your life. Because right now, you're not doing that. And you should.
Christians, people who are supposed to be following after God, people who are supposed to be hungering and thirsting for righteousness. We don't want it said about us that all we did was argue.
No, all you've done is make fools of yourselves. Christians aren't arguing, not well anyhow. All you're doing is throwing childish temper tantrums and holding your breath until you turn blue. That's what you look like, immature little children that just want to have your way. But that's not how rational, mature adults operate. You don't get to just declare, I really like this idea, so it's true. But that's what you're doing, and that's nothing to be proud of. Rational people go out, evaluate the actual evidence, and draw their conclusions from there. I did a video not too long ago about how mature people ought to act, and why the religious don't. Go watch that. It might help. Rational people do not engage in logical fallacies, which is about all the religious ever do. They actually care if the crap in their heads is indicative of objective reality. And yours isn't. It just isn't. Maybe you ought to try to do something about that. Give it a shot.
There's a very small scripture in Matthew that says, Jesus was talking to these people and he said, many will come to me in the last day and say, Lord, Lord, didn't I insert all of these many things? And he will say, turn away from me, I did not know you. Very simple. We followed Jesus because there was something that turned our face toward him. We chose to surrender our lives and do that, and that was a personal choice for us.
Except you don't get to just pick and choose reality. Reality is what reality is, whether you like it or not. You can't just jump out of an airplane and when all of your chutes fail, you just arbitrarily decide to stop believing in gravity until you come floating gently to the ground. It doesn't work like that. You're going to go splat. Too bad, so sad, praying for angels to come and save you or hoping for a wayward alien flying saucer to swing by and beam you up. None of that is going to happen because none of that is real. You people are just making excuses because reality hurts your fifis. And that's stupid, it really is. You don't have control here. You don't get to set the parameters of your life. Reality is what reality is, and reality is a bitch sometimes. Learn to deal with it. Grow up and grow a spine, because you're not going to get anywhere useful otherwise.
In order for other people to see the greatness and the magnitude of all that we believe that Jesus to be, all that we believe God to be, we have to show them in the way that we love them.
Nope, that just shows us that you've got nothing of value to present. It proves to us that you're terrified, because I think we both know that you are. Terrified and deluded is not a positive combination, yet that's exactly what the religious are. I even recognize in retrospect that's how I used to be when I was a Christian. Then I got better, and so can you. You're just not willing because the constant addiction to dopamine in your brain is keeping you from doing so. Because you just don't care so long as it keeps feeling good. And I find it really hard to believe that any worthwhile human being could be okay with that once it gets pointed out to them.
Guys, stop arguing with people. If you see an atheist or you hear an atheist and they would like to know why it is that you believe, tell them why you believe. Tell them why you decided to surrender your entire life to a holy God and live in the kingdom of heaven. It's our job to colonize earth with heaven. That's all we're supposed to be doing, guys.
Except it's not, but you don't care. This is really just fear talking, fear and frustration. They're afraid because, at least on some level, I think they recognize they're not doing that well. That's why just about every religion is falling apart in the Western world. Because people are getting too smart to fall for their faith-based nonsense, and they don't know how to handle that. And frustration because they're getting really tired of losing as badly as they do. So they just run back to their religious safe spaces where the rest of the religious wingnuts tell them they're all doing it just fine, even when they're not. God is going to just get the meanies of the world someday, and they shouldn't worry about it. Except that doesn't sit well with the religious much of the time. There's this thing called the Great Commission in the Bible, in Matthew 28:19-20, where Jesus said, "Therefore, go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and the Son and of the Holy Spirit, and teaching them to obey everything I have commanded you. And surely I am with you always to the very end of the age." Except that isn't going too well, is it? Not anywhere that education is becoming more advanced and people are more skeptical of wide-eyed empty claims. That's all the religious have after all. It's all feelings and emotional comfort and absolutely no evidence. Absolutely no facts. Absolutely nothing that they can present to the skeptics that would convince anyone with half a brain that their beliefs are factually correct. Because they're not. It's becoming harder and harder for the religious to stand up after getting knocked down time and time again. They never just lay there, bruised and bloody on the ground, and consider whether this is a worthwhile course of action. They never consider whether their beliefs are valid in the first place, because they just don't care. So they just change tactics. They can't win in a fair fight, so they just go into hiding. Jhia isn't the first to suggest this, and she won't be the last. Why? Because she's terrified, and she should be. Her side is losing, and she's got the mental block that insists that that can't be true. It's why she's cherry-picking the Bible and ignoring the verses that say to get out there and actively convert people to Christ. Always be ready to give an answer. She can't do that. She just can't, because her answers are laughable. Nobody pays them any mind, and that's frustrating. So she's going into hiding. She's curling up in the fetal position because the world is too mean for her. And you know who else does that? Children. Think about it. That says a lot about Jhia, and that's just sad.
Boom, dicky, 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 boom.